Welcome to our first installment of Disney World Ride Guides. Today we'll look at Epcot and do our best to inform Disney beginners on their first trip. This is more for first time families to see what rides are must do, or to inform them on what may be a little too much for smaller guests. I'm just doing the 11 main attractions and ranking them into 3 tiers. The first obviously being what's family friendly for all, the thrill rides you may need to make sure everyone is on board for. But let me know if this is useful and if you want me to do the rest of the parks. If we can get double-digit likes on this video, I'll do the Magic Kingdom next. I think I set up all the information you'll need to know. Let's get into our first ride. So full disclosure before we go forward. There are 2 attractions that I've never been on, and Remy's Ratatouille Adventure is one of them. From the videos I've seen, they just seem like a standard Disney dark ride. Located in the France Pavilion and World Showcase, to get there is a little tricky. Once you get to the fork in the road by the countries, head right towards Canada. After passing England, France is your next stop. Turn right and keep right until you get to the end of the alley. Then turn left and the show building will be straight ahead. Be prepared to wait at least an hour since this ride is a newer attraction. Now we could start talking about attractions that I'm familiar with, and Living with the Land is one of my favorites. To get there, if you're heading from Spaceship Earth, aka the Big Ball, head right towards World Nature. You'll see 3 show buildings. Once there, head towards the middle one. You'll see a sign out front that says the Land and Soaring right out front. Go inside the show building and make your way downstairs. You could use the stairs, escalator, or even the elevator if need be. Once on the ground floor, you should see a sign for Living with the Land on the right. This may also be a good place to stop and get something quick to eat or use the bathroom. Wait times are usually short, ranging from 5 to 20 minutes on average. The line moves a little slow, but nothing to be worried about in my opinion. Living with the Land is a 15-minute boat ride that's part educational and part greenhouse tour. What makes this ride interesting is that all the fruits and veggies grown here are used for restaurants around the parks. If this is something that interests you, there's also a behind-the-scenes tour you could take. The only potential problem I could see for this ride is if you have kids who are afraid of thunder. The first scene takes place in a rainforest during a storm. Nothing out of control, but just a note to see if it's something worth skipping for your family. But personally, I go on this multiple times a trip, or even sometimes multiple times a day if possible. Our next entry takes place in World Showcase. Just like Remy. Instead of going right towards Canada, go left to Mexico instead and it'll be the first country you run into. You'll see a giant Aztec temple on your left. Head inside and go all the way to the back and keep left. There's usually a cast member standing in front of the entrance. This is another shorter wait time, usually between 5 and 15 minutes. You may want to avoid this ride right before or right after dinner, since the temple is also home to a restaurant that's incorporated into the ride itself. So people usually hop on right before or right after their meal. But the line here usually moves fairly quickly. This is another boat ride that takes you through popular tourist destinations in Mexico, all while the Three Caballeros music plays overhead. You get to witness Donald Duck cause all sorts of problems for the locals. One thing to be aware of though, is that at the end there's usually a boat jam while people are unloading. It's not uncommon for boats to rear-end each other during this process. Just keep an eye out behind you because sometimes you might get slight whiplash if you aren't expecting it. This is one of my favorite rides and it may just be for the restaurant in the beginning of this ride. Our final entry for Tier 1 is Spaceship Earth. Assuming you're entering from the parking lot, it's straight ahead from when you entered the park. You can't miss the gigantic golf ball right in front of you. The queue is outside, so be prepared if it's a longer wait. Usually when you first enter the park, the wait time could be anywhere from 30 minutes plus. But if you wait until the evening, this is a walk-on so you could go on at your heart's content. The line here moves fairly slowly, especially if there's guests with disabilities. They'll slow the entire ride down to ensure the safety of the guests boarding, sometimes even going as far as stopping the ride completely. It's something that happens fairly frequently, but not an amount to be concerned about. This is a slow-moving dark ride that takes 15 minutes. But when I say dark, I mean dark. Portions of this ride are just pitch black, so if you have smaller riders that sleep with a nightlight, just inform them ahead of time. Other than that, there is a part that goes backwards, so if you have people that are sensitive to that sort of thing, just give them a heads up. But nothing I said should be a problem. They aren't very long, and it's quite enjoyable to cool off for 15 minutes. So the 3 rides I selected for Tier 2 don't really have anything that bad in them, but there are a few scenes that I think you need to take into consideration. The Seas with Nemo and Friends is our next stop. and it's right next to the Land Pavilion. You'll just head right from Spaceship Earth, just like going to the land. And once you reach the three show buildings, it'll be the one on the far right. There's usually very little to no wait. The queue, however, is fairly long, so you'll be twisting and turning through those dividers for quite some time. The ride is only about 5 minutes long. But the two scenes in question are the anglerfish that they pipe in the roars for, and Bruce the shark that's lurking in the ship graveyard scene. I know some people who are deathly afraid of sharks, so if you know anyone like that, they may want to know ahead of time. Other than that, this is just a cute undersea adventure. The post show has a full aquarium, and also has a meet and greet with Crush the Turtle that's very popular with kids. So if you have any fans of the movie, I suggest doing everything the post show has to offer. Journey into Imagination with Figment is a polarizing ride, but we won't get into the history here, but I do have a video on that if you're interested. It's in the same cluster of the three show buildings on the right hand side, so just do what we did the last time and head right from Spaceship Earth. It's the building on the far left. The wait times here aren't very long and rarely go above 5 minutes. Although it could feel more like 10 to 15 minutes given how slow this line can move. This is an 8-minute ride, so you'll get 3 more minutes to cool off, unlike Nemo. The ride is broken up into labs, and the first one being the Sound Lab. They do a gag with the loud train sound that plays overhead, so if you have someone with sensory issues, this could be a little too loud for them. The Smell Lab is next and has a slot machine with a whole bunch of scents, but it always lands on skunk. The smell isn't too bad, but could be an issue for people with sensitive noses. The final thing I'll warn you about is that there's a mini jump scare at the end, where the walls get blown away by a puff of smoke and a mini blast that takes place. Nothing too intense, but something to be aware of when the time comes. This is considered one of the worst rides in the park, and I'm inclined to agree, but I could see it being fun for someone who's new to Epcot. The last ride of Tier 2 is Frozen Ever After. This attraction is in World Showcase. To get there, take that fork in the road at the countries once more and go left towards Mexico. It'll be the next country right after that. It's in the back right corner of the Norway Pavilion, but be prepared to wait at least an hour. And if you see it listed for less, make sure you take advantage of it. Although the line moves pretty fast for the time listed. Overall, this attraction should be fun for everyone, but there is a slight drop and it does go backwards at one point. But if you have any Frozen fans in your party, I'd make time to go on this ride. For Tier 3, these are all your thrill rides, so if you're an adrenaline junkie, you may want to go out of your way to get on these attractions. Keep in mind most of these are Disney-fied, so they're probably tamer than what you're used to, except for maybe one. 3 of the 4 on this tier are all in one area of the park, so we'll touch on those 3 going from left to right when you enter World Discovery. This time, if you go left from Spaceship Earth, you'll run into the 3 show buildings just like in World Nature. The first one being the newest addition to the park, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. This is the other attraction that I've never been on, so I can't give you many details. Just that I heard this may be the most intense ride in all of Epcot. I believe it's a roller coaster that goes almost entirely backwards, so also keep that in mind if you like coasters but get sick going the opposite direction. To get on this ride, you'll need to sign up on My Disney Experience app. There are 2 windows in which to do so. One is at 7 a.m., the other is at 1 p.m. You'll be assigned a time and a group number, and even then your wait time may be an hour from what I've heard. So try it early and often so you don't miss out if this is something that's a must-do for you and your party. And right in the middle, we have Mission Space. This is a motion simulator to make you feel like you're being launched into space. There are 2 intensity levels, green for people who want to ride this but don't want to chance motion sickness, and orange for people who love the thrills. The wait times here usually vary from 10 minutes to an hour depending on the day, but usually averages out to about 40 minutes a wait. I tend to notice there usually isn't much of a line, but moves rather quickly even at longer durations. Each rider will be assigned a job, and a button will light up when it's your time to use said job. Don't worry, because even if you miss, this attraction will do it for you. This is one of my least favorites in Epcot, but if space interests you and you have a strong stomach, there is fun to be had here. The final ride in World Discovery is Test Track. As of this recording, this ride will be down for refurbishment on June 17th, 2024. So if you're watching this before then and are interested, make sure to make it a point to get on this attraction. The wait times here are usually an hour, but if you're lucky, you may find it at 45 minutes. And even then, this line moves slower than molasses. That's mostly due to the pre-show where you design your own car. The process usually adds another 8 minutes to your wait, but it's a cool addition where you'll see how your car stacks up to each test in the ride amongst everyone in your ride vehicle. There is a single rider option if you want a shorter wait and want to skip the car creation process, but you will ride with strangers. It's also a good option if you're the only person who wants to ride this attraction in your party. Like I said, this ride takes you through various tests in a VR-like environment, with the climax taking you through an outdoor track where you go 65 miles per hour. This ride will also close if there's even a hint of lightning, so if it's a rainy day, you may just want to skip this one. But if you're in the parks before June 17th, I highly recommend it. It's probably the least intense of all the thrill rides and only has one spot where you stop short. Now we've reached the last attraction in Soarin'. This is located in the same show building as Living with the Land. So just like last time, head right from Spaceship Earth and go to the Land Pavilion. Go downstairs once more and it'll be in the back left corner of the building. The wait times usually vary from a half hour to an hour, but usually settles in at around 35 minutes. The line, however, usually moves slower, resulting in a longer wait time than listed. If you have someone in your party with a fear of heights, you may want to inform them ahead of time. You'll be seated in an erector set-like structure and will be lifted high above a movie screen. You'll see various places around the world as they pipe in scents that match each scene. But a pro tip, for the best experience, ask a cast member if you could wait for the top middle row. If you're on one of the bottom two rows, you will see feet dangling over your head, so that may or may not impact your ride experience. But for me, higher is better. Also, if you're on the left or right row, the screen tends to look a little stretched, so that also may impact your ride experience. But overall, this is probably my favorite thrill ride in all of Epcot. And if no one is afraid of heights in your party, this is fun for all ages. But that'll do it for Epcot. I hope I didn't come off too soft on some of these rides. My feeling is if you're going to spend thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars in some cases, on what may be your first and only Disney trip, I want to make sure you're informed ahead of time. One bad experience can ruin an entire vacation. So I want it to be as thorough as possible. And if you're a Disney vet, let me know how I did and what you want me to cover in the future. And if I wasn't informative enough, I hope I was at least entertaining. But I'll wrap up this episode here, so drop a like if you enjoyed this, subscribe if I earned it, and thank you for watching.